At this time, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Today is Thursday, August 8th, 2024, and this is a meeting of the Rent Stabilization Commission for the City of West Hollywood. We would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather, currently known as the City of West Hollywood, is the occupied, unceded, seized territory of the Gabrielino Tongva and Gabrielino Kizh peoples. Commissioner Rory, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you. Madam Secretary, may we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Commissioner Kirpies?
Here.
Commissioner Rory?
Present.
Commissioner Topshin?
Here.
And Chair Bass?
Here. We have a quorum. Has everyone had the chance to review tonight's amended, revised agenda?
Motion to approve. Second.
Thank you.
Ready for a roll call?
Yes, please. Sorry.
Commissioner Kirpies?
Aye.
Commissioner Rory?
Aye.
Commissioner Topshin?
Aye.
And Chair Bass?
Aye. Motion passes. We now have the minutes from the meeting of, looking for the date here, July 25th, 2024. Have you had a chance to review them, and do we have a motion?
I'll move them with one amendment.
Okay.
Under action, the Rent Stabilization Commission elected Commissioner Bass as chair. We should put Rent Stabilization Commission unanimously elected Commissioner Bass as chair.
Commissioner Kirpies, can you repeat that into the mic? I didn't catch that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. On the second page, action, the Rent Stabilization Commission elected Commissioner Bass as the chair. Should say the Rent Stabilization Commission unanimously elected Commissioner Bass as the chair. Matches the same phrasing as later on for the.
I can make that correction
okay.
if there is a motion and a second on the floor. If it passes, I will amend the minutes.
I'll second it as amended.
Okay.
And may we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Commissioner Kirpies?
Aye.
Commissioner Rory?
Abstain.
Okay. Commissioner Topshin?
Aye.
And Chair Bass?
Aye. And I understand that because we're a minimum quorum, that it's just a majority of those in attendance, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
The motion
So
passes.
The motion passes. And do we have any public speakers at this time?
No public speakers.
Thank you. We'll now turn to the manager's report, item 7 on our agenda. Mr. Kessinger, may we have a report, please?
Yes, good evening, commissioners. Glad to see you all here tonight. For the commission meeting tonight, we have no appeals scheduled, but fret not. There are items from staff, including a presentation from my colleague Yasmin Spiteri on the interest rate on security deposits, the announcement of the valuation guidelines, and the election for vice chair. On August 22nd, I just want to clarify, because last meeting I did say that this would be canceled due to lack of quorum. It appears that we will have quorum. We may have a new commissioner with us at that time. So we'll be proceeding with Appeal D4869. On September 12th, we have Appeal D4846 and D4865. On September 26th, we have D4876 and D4851CD. On October 10th, we have D4831CD and D4884. On October 24th, we have D4877 and D4916. And finally, on November 14th, we have D4889. And that concludes the manager report.
Thank you very much. Do any of the commissioners have questions for our staff? Great. We have no appeals tonight, as you just heard, number 8, and so we will move on to number 9, announcement of interest rate on security deposits held during calendar year 2024. Do we have a staff report?
Is the presentation ready?
Just one moment.
Okay. Well, good evening, Chair and Commissioners. While that's getting ready, my name is Yasmin Spiteri. I'm one of the information coordinators with Rent Stabilization. It's good to see you all again. I'm here for my annual visit to share the security deposit interest rate, as well as providing some background on the topic, given that just a couple of years ago we made some amendments to the formula. So we'll be going over that as well. Thank you. Was not plugged in, sorry. All right. So diving right in. So every year, the commission announces the interest rate that is to be paid for security deposits held by landlords in that calendar year. Section 17.32.020 of the West Hollywood Municipal Code states that landlords are required to pay interest on an annual basis, and that the interest rate to be paid on those security deposits be announced by this commission before September 1st of the subject year. The calculated interest is either paid to tenants directly via a check or another form of payment, or it needs to be offered as a one-time payment made as a rent reduction. And that would be done before February 1st or by January 31st of the following year. Beginning with calendar year 2022, the rate has been calculated by averaging the interest rates for savings accounts of 5 online FDIC-insured banks and rounding to the nearest tenth of 1%. And that's as listed, banks as listed on bankrate.com or a similar consumer financial services company. And that calculation is completed in August of each year. The banks chosen for this calculation are those that are FDIC insured, that have savings accounts with the highest interest rates, and that require no more than a $500 minimum deposit. This requirement is applicable to all rent-stabilized properties, and for tenancies that began on or after March 24th, 2022, this also applies to new construction, multifamily buildings, single-family homes, and condos. This year, the banks and the rates used to determine the 2024 interest rate were UFB Direct, which has a savings account with a 5.02% interest rate, Bread Savings with 5.02%, Basque Bank with 4.97%, Everbank 5.05%, and Popular Direct 4.93%. Using these numbers, the average is 4.998%, and rounding to the nearest tenth of a percent results in a rate of 5% for security deposits held during calendar year 2024. In terms of outreach to the community on this topic, this information will be available at the City Hall Rent Stabilization Counter. It'll be mailed to all residents in December along with the winter newsletter and displayed prominently on the city's website. Our division updates a flyer each year that on one side provides just information on the topic, similar to the information that I'm providing tonight, but also on how to calculate the amount that's due to the tenants. And then the other side includes a form that allows for both landlords and tenants to make those calculations themselves and to figure out how to receive payment for that year's security deposit interest. And then for all of those publications that I just listed, those will be made available in English, Spanish, and Russian. Some additional background information on the topic. In 2021, the rent stabilization regulations were amended to reflect a new security deposit interest rate formula. The 2022 security deposit interest rate of 1.7% was the first time in 9 years that landlords had paid an amount to tenants, since the previous formula had resulted in 0% for many years. Previously, the rent regulations calculated the average interest rates of regular passbook savings accounts of 5 banks that had brick and mortar locations within the city of West Hollywood, and then the average was then rounded to the nearest 0.25%. In October 2019, the Commission expressed interest in adjusting the formula, considering that there were newer, more online options available to West Hollywood residents. They inquired in October and had subsequent conversations where they considered a change to rounding from 0.25% to 0.1%, examining online savings accounts and other types of accounts such as CD or certificate of deposit accounts. And they also expressed that they wanted to ensure we used only FDIC-insured banks. And so staff came back with information about those matters, and that included a confirmation that the interest rate before had been calculated using the 0.25%, because that's the percentage that we used when we calculate the annual AGA. So it was initially meant to match that calculation. And then CD accounts were reviewed by staff and information brought forth about that, but there were concerns about the liquidity of the funds or availability of funds when it came time to pay back security deposits to tenants. Another question that came up was why bankrate.com as the website to use when picking the banks. And Bankrate was chosen because it's a well-established online financial services website and monitoring company that provides interest rate information since 1976. Hundreds of top publications rely on this website as a trusted source of information on financial rates and other banking-related information. It's also free to users, so our community members are free to access that information and review the information that we provide through these calculations. And then to finish out this background overview, in August of 2021, staff returned with a proposed amendment to the rent regulations that would codify the Commission's direction on the matter. And then resolution number 21-5440 was approved by City Council to amend the security deposit interest rate formula to what it is today on September 20th, 2021. And that brings us back to present day. So today's announcement of the 5% interest rate is what will be used to calculate the amount due back to tenants based on the security deposits held by their landlords in the calendar year of 2024. And with that, I open it up to questions from the commissioners. Thank you.
Thank you. Do any of the Commissioner Thompson?
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Yasmin.
Good
It's
evening.
good to see you. But a couple of questions. So one, the first question, I think you mentioned something at the beginning. What is the requirement, how the landlords have to pay the security deposits after these been announced?
So they either make a payment directly to the tenant or they offer a rent credit in the month of February. So they either
In the
pay
month of February.
directly by January 31st or offer a rent reduction.
Okay,
after
yeah,
that.
I just wanted to, probably didn't hear that February, the month of February. Assuming, I mean, for a hypothetical, if the landlord doesn't provide that credit, can the tenant self-deduct and inform the landlord about the why the tenant self-deducted the amount of the security deposit interest?
Yeah, so the form, the educational or informational flyer that we provide on the side that is more of a fillable form, it includes the calculation, and it's a form that both landlords and tenants can use. So at the bottom, it allows tenants to elect an option where that essentially makes it a notice to their landlord that says, this is the calculation, this is what's due to me, and I'll be deducting this from my rent in February.
Okay, and the last question, is there any a statute of limitation for how many years back a tenant can go to, if assuming security, the interest rate was not paid for the last few years, is there any time limit, how many years a tenant can go back to
I'll let
collect?
Cameron answer that one.
Okay, yes, Mr. Manager.
Generally, in terms of the statute of limitations, we would refer tenants to an attorney because it might constitute legal advice. It could be situationally specific, but we do encourage tenants who have claims that they believe apply to prior years to seek civil remedies as appropriate. Mm-hmm.
So that would be a civil matter to pursue, not through the department procedure?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you both. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Kirpies?
Thank you. I really appreciate the report tonight, very thorough. Thank you very much. The questions, I guess it's kind of a comment. It seems like the last couple of years we've used the same form, and I don't know what form will be used again this year, but I've always found the forms a little bit confusing. I mean, it's 80% there, but it just seems like there's a little bit, it could be a little bit more clear, and maybe if we made it more like where the top half is for the landlord or the bottom half is for the tenant, because right now it kind of seems like it's kind of intermixing a little bit and it's a little bit confusing. And then my other comment was going to be, how do we get this, get tenants to know that they can ask for this? And I really appreciate all the outreach that you'll be doing. You mentioned that this applies to all resident or all rental units throughout the city. And you mentioned a winter newsletter. Is that a winter newsletter that's only sent to rent stabilized units, or is that a rent or a winter newsletter that gets sent to everybody in the city?
It'll be a newsletter that's sent out to every tenancy in the city. It used to only be sent to rent stabilized properties, but
Okay.
we had an update to registration requirements that now includes all rental units in the city. And so now we have the ability to send out newsletters to all
Excellent.
rental units in the city.
Well, thank you very much. And I just hope that, we can maybe look at that form and clarify this a little bit.
Thank you.
Commissioner Rory?
Just to say, I appreciate the historical aspect you brought to the report, because it was really great to see that. I'm a history person. And I think that the comments and questions tonight were good from the commissioners in terms of the outreach and what tenants can do if they're not sure where to go to apply for this, because I do think that it's interesting, especially the history of the rates that you showed, that the rate that we're potentially, that's being proposed, and I guess we would receive and file tonight, is may change in 6 months from now in the new year, after what may or may not happen with federal interest rates in the next 6 months. So it'll be extra important for the city to follow through on its efforts for communicating and letting people know 5% is going to mean even more potentially in 6 months than it does today. So that was my only comment, and thank you for that historical perspective.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have nothing further to add here. I will suggest that we've received and filed this, and the rate will be 5%. And we will move on to 9B, announcement of 2024 to 25 annual adjustment to the valuation guidelines, and turn to a staff report. Oh, I should have asked, was there public comment on that last item before we officially receive and file?
No public comment.
Then now it is officially received and filed,
Yes.
and we'll move on.
Thank you. I'm just going to give a brief presentation on the announcement of the 2024-2025 annual adjustment to the valuation guidelines. Some brief history here. In March of 2021, the Rent Stabilization Commission established an ad hoc committee and tasked it with reviewing the guidelines and regulations associated with determining the amount to be attributed to as a rent decrease for a substantial loss or elimination of a housing service or failure to perform required maintenance under the RSO. Those recommendations were presented in October 2021, the findings of the ad hoc committee to the Rent Stabilization Commission, and shortly thereafter was adopted as Regulation 60041.1, adopted by the City Council on February 7th, 2022. In addition to establishing the enhanced guidelines, Regulation 60041.1 also dictates that September 1st of each year through August 31st, the valuation guidelines on the low and higher ends be adjusted by the annual general adjustment. You may recall that the annual general adjustment this year announced in June is 3%. So this report contains the prior and new values after being adjusted on the high and low end by the annual general adjustment of 3%. That concludes the background, but I'm open for any questions commissioners might have.
Thank you. Questions from commissioners? Commissioner Topchin?
Thank you. Can you explain, for example, how that 3% applies, and then in this chart, for example, for the housing service, air conditioner housing service, I see the prior low is 15 and the new low is 15. If it's 3% applied, how it didn't change, or like the next line is front desk, $29. I assume it's dollars, right? $29, and then after 3%, it's $30.
Mm-hmm. So unfortunately, with smaller figures, and this is a relatively new system, this regulation in this system of adding the 3% began just last year. So one thing that staff has proposed that we sort of brought before the commission last time, and that's pending a review by City Council, is to provide that there be a minimum adjustment of 1, because what we see for a smaller figure like 15 is 3% of 15 is 15 rounded to the nearest whole number. So for some of these figures, we're not going to likely see changes over time with the limitations, and the maximum that the AGA can be is 3%. So hopefully, following council review, if that change is implemented, we will see every low and high value change, even if they're relatively small.
Okay. I was part of that ad hoc committee in 2021, and actually the first time we reviewed years ago, I think it was like 2015 or so. And I remember the time when we reviewed the services, some of the services had the value of $1 a month or $2 a month, $3 a month. That really bothered everyone, and I was very passionate about it, that we should just get rid of those. I don't see any $1 or $2 value for the service, but I still see $5 value that, you know, I see a lot of services that are valued like $5. And in a prior and even new law, although you explain the way the calculations applied, but again, it's, to me, it doesn't sound, if it's a reasonable amount when it comes to a service, for example, a barbecue grill. I think it's a pretty good service, so to have a value of $5. So I'm not suggesting really, it's just kind of a speaking, I don't know, just pointing out to the fact that the services, some of the services, the value initially were kind of at the lower end, and I think this is kind of to bring it to the Commission's attention that obviously these are suggested guidelines, and I just hope that when the examiner looks into the specific case and the case factors and goes case by case, so they're not going to stick with what's in this guideline, because these are just suggested guidelines. If somebody's rent is hypothetically $4,000 and the barbecue is taken away, I don't think that would be equivalent or would be reasonable to apply $5 it says here. So I just want to make sure that the kind of examiners, they're open-minded to look into actively using the factors that the regulations provide to determine the reasonable value. And as one of the factors we have, that's the rent level for the unit and significance of the service that relied upon when the unit was rented, and the comfort, convenience, all these things that are included in the regulations. I just want to kind of ask you as the manager to, you know, see if it's possible to maybe, I wouldn't say give training to the examiners, but provide some information so then they kind of have this open mind about the values, because it still really bothers me to see that some of the services are, you know, that low. But, and also the commissioners, as we know that we have an authority to change the amounts when it comes before us, although we're not in favor of doing that, but if some of the values determined by the examiner are really low, so the commission has the authority, has the right to change it if we need it. So it just, basically, I just wanted to point out to that. But this is much better than we had years ago, and this is a big progress. And I'm happy to see this been implemented, and every year it's going to grow. And thank you for the presentation. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? And do we have any public comments?
No public comments at this time.
Thank you. Then I will thank you for the report and announce that the annual adjustment of the valuation guidelines set forth in Rent Stabilization Regulation 60041.1 are effective September 1st, 2024. And we'll move on to our next item, number 10, unfinished business, the election of a vice chair. And I will hand this over to our city clerk's appointed representative, our secretary.
Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. I am your City Clerk designee tonight that will be running your Vice Chair election. So I will go ahead and give you the list of the commissioners that are eligible for the Vice Chair position. So currently we have Commissioner Kerpes, Commissioner Rory, and Commissioner Topshin. And I will open up the floor to any nominations for Vice Chair.
And I'd like to nominate Commissioner Rory for Vice Chair. Was it position? What do you say? Sounds like very important. Role. Thank you.
Do you accept Commissioner Rory?
I accept in the flesh.
Okay.
That's
No.
what we were missing last time. Are there any other nominations? I think you can
Okay.
proceed.
I don't hear any other nominations, so I will go ahead and close the nominations. And it is time for a roll call vote. So you can either say Commissioner Rory or you can just say yes, since we only have one nominee. So Commissioner Kerpes,
Aye.
Commissioner Rory,
Aye.
Commissioner Topshin,
Aye.
and Chair Bass.
Aye.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, Vice Chair Rory.
Thank you. I'll just say real quick, thank you for giving me this opportunity. I really appreciate it, and thank you for the last meeting for making the accommodation for me to come tonight. I was a little under the weather, but was watching and was really honored that you guys would continue to do this. And I'm happy to do it. I'm looking forward to doing it, and I have one more year left on my at-large appointment, so I'm ready to go, and this will be great. Thank you both. Thank you everyone for this opportunity.
Very excited. We're getting done very quickly here. Moving on, I don't know, maybe this items from staff is going to be a long item, but we'll move along tonight. Item number 11.
Just a quick announcement. It won't take too long. I just wanted to let all the commissioners know that we are looking to bring the recommendations of the commission and staff to the City Council ideally at the August 26th meeting. There will also be one additional minor technical edit to Regulation 42000 proposed that relates to security deposits. If any of the commissioners have any questions about the content or substance of that proposed modification, then please feel free to reach out to staff at any point. That's all the announcements I have.
I know we cannot discuss it here, but could you give us a brief overview? Obviously, we can't debate that tonight, but would love to hear it.
It essentially relates to the timeline for the application of the reduction based on the security deposit increase. So it's just aligning what exists in the regulations explicitly with our current practice.
Very technical.
Yes.
Okay. Any questions for staff at this time? Then we'll move on. Number 12, public comment.
No public comments at this time.
Then we'll move on to item number 13, items from commissioners. Nothing from Commissioner Topshin, Commissioner Kerpes?
Just to congratulate our new vice chair. And to say that our new chair did a wonderful job this evening, and I expect the same every meeting.
No meetings over 31 minutes.
Yes, Chair, before you speak, may I congratulate you, Vice Chair Rory, and I'm excited to see how you're going to serve in this role, and I'm sure it's going to be fine. And again, congratulations with your first meeting. Well done. It was short, quick, but it's not your fault. So anyways,
Okay. Vice Chair Rory?
Just to confirm, for next meeting, you announced that you won't be in attending, so
That's
is that correct? Okay, so I'll be happy to step in as leading that meeting. And thank you all again for this honor and privilege, and to everyone listening at home, look forward to serving the community and to staff and the clerk's office and everyone. Looking forward to working with you all.
So my congratulations, Vice Chair. I'm excited to serve with you for the next year in this role, and good luck. is working or leading the next meeting. I also want to acknowledge Commissioner Designee Paris, who's with us, joined us in the meeting, and I'm sorry I will not be here next meeting when you are sworn in, but very grateful that you're joining us so that we can actually have a meeting, and we will have 4 commissioners here, led by the great vice chair. Thank you all for a great first time in this seat. I mentioned the only other time I've chaired a commission that met here was all on Zoom, so it's different being in the middle here. But thank you all, and going back to my script so I make sure I say everything correctly. This meeting is adjourned to the next regularly scheduled meeting of the Rent Stabilization Commission to be held on August 25th, 2020. Is that correct date? No, August 22nd. August 22nd, 2024, in the West Hollywood Park Public Meeting Room, Council Chambers. We're adjourned.